Welcome to the hour-long SCP video. This video contains many SCPs including SCP-096, SCP-173, SCP-999, and finally SCP-001, and this is best to use headphones. This video is similar to my old content. I have been working on this for months. Enjoy. Item number, SCP-096. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-096 is to be contained in its cell, a 5m×5m×5m airtight steel cube, at all times. Weekly checks for any cracks or holes are mandatory. There are to be absolutely no video surveillance or optical tools of any kind inside SCP-096 cell. Security personnel will use pre-installed pressure sensors and laser detectors to ensure SCP-096 presence inside the cell. Any and all photos, video, or recordings of SCP-096 likeness are strictly forbidden without approval from Dr. Redacted and O5 Redacted. Description: SCP-096 is a humanoid creature measuring approximately 2.38 meters in height. Subject shows very little muscle mass, with preliminary analysis of body mass suggesting mild malnutrition. Arms are grossly out of proportion with the rest of the subject's body, with an approximate length of 1.5 meters each. Skin is mostly devoid of pigmentation, with no sign of any body hair. SCP-096 jaw can open to 4 times the norm of an average human. Other facial features remain similar to an average human, with the exception of the eyes, which are also devoid of pigmentation. It is not yet known whether SCP-096 is blind or not. It shows no signs of any higher brain functions, and is not considered to be sapient. SCP-096 is normally extremely docile, with pressure sensors inside its cell indicating it spends most of the day pacing by the eastern wall. However, when someone views SCP-096 face, whether it be directly, via video recording, or even a photograph, it will enter a stage of considerable emotional distress. SCP-096 will cover its face with its hands and begin screaming, crying, and babbling incoherently. Approximately 1 to 2 minutes after the first viewing, SCP-096 will begin running to the person who viewed its face, who will from this point on be referred to as SCP-096-1. Documented speeds have varied from 35 km/h/k/h, and seems to depend on distance from SCP-096-1. At this point, no known material or method can impede SCP-096 progress. The actual position of SCP-096-1 does not seem to affect SCP-096 response. It seems to have an innate sense of SCP-096-1's location. Note, this reaction does not occur when viewing artistic depictions, see Document 096-1. Upon arriving at SCP-096-1's location, SCP-096 will proceed to kill and, data expunged, SCP-096-1. 100% of cases have left no traces of SCP-096-1. SCP-096 will then sit down for several minutes before regaining its composure and becoming docile once again. It will then attempt to make its way back to its natural habitat, data redacted. Due to the possibility of a mass chain reaction, including breach of Foundation secrecy and large civilian loss of life, retrieval of subject should be considered alpha priority. Doctor has also petitioned for immediate termination of SCP-096, see Interview 096-1. Order is awaiting approval. Termination order has been approved, and is to be carried out by Doctor on data. Item Hashtag SCP-049. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-049 is contained within a standard secure humanoid containment cell in Research Sector 02 at Site 19. SCP-049 must be sedated before any attempts to transport it. During transport, SCP-049 must be secured within a Class 3 humanoid restriction harness, including a locking collar and extension restraints, and monitored by no fewer than 2 armed guards. While SCP-049 is generally cooperative with most Foundation personnel, outbursts or sudden changes in behavior are to be met with elevated force. Under no circumstances should any personnel come into direct contact with SCP-049 during these outbursts. In the event SCP-049 becomes aggressive, the application of lavender, L. multifida, has been shown to produce a calming effect on the entity. Once calmed, SCP-049 generally becomes compliant, and will return to containment with little resistance. In order to facilitate the ongoing containment of SCP-049, the entity is to be provided with the corpse of a recently deceased animal, typically a bovine or other large mammal, once every 2 weeks for study. Corpses that become instances of SCP-049-2 are to be removed from SCP-049's containment cell and incinerated. SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact with human subjects, and requests for human subjects are to be denied. Temporary Containment Procedure Update. See Addendum 49.3, per Containment Committee Order 049.S 19.17.1, SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact directly with any members of Foundation staff, nor is it to be provided with any additional corpses to be used in its surgeries. This order shall persist indefinitely, until such time a consensus regarding the ongoing containment of SCP-049 can be reached. Description: SCP-049 is a humanoid entity, roughly 1.9 meters in height, which bears the appearance of a medieval plague doctor. While SCP-049 appears to be wearing the thick robes and the ceramic mask indicative of that profession, the garments instead seem to have grown out of SCP-049's body over time and are now nearly indistinguishable from whatever form is beneath them. X-rays indicate that despite this, SCP-049 does have a humanoid skeletal structure beneath its outer layer. SCP-049 is capable of speech in a variety of languages, though tends to prefer English or medieval French too. While SCP-049 is generally cordial and cooperative with Foundation staff, it can become especially irritated or at times outright aggressive if it feels that it is in the presence of what it calls the pestilence. Although the exact nature of this pestilence is currently unknown to Foundation researchers, it does seem to be an issue of immense concern to SCP-049. SCP-049 will become hostile with individuals it sees as being affected by the pestilence, often having to be restrained should it encounter such. If left unchecked, SCP-049 will generally attempt to kill any such individual. SCP-049 is capable of causing all biological functions of an organism to cease through direct skin contact. How this occurs is currently unknown, and autopsies of SCP-049's victims have invariably been inconclusive. SCP-049 has expressed frustration or remorse after these killings, indicating that they have done little to kill the pestilence, though will usually seek to then perform a crude surgery on the corpse using the implements contained within a black doctor's bag it carries on its person at all times. 3. While these surgeries are not always successful, they often result in the creation of instances of SCP-049-2. SCP-049-2 instances are reanimated corpses that have been operated on by SCP-049. These instances do not seem to retain any of their prior memories or mental functions, having only basic motor skills and response mechanisms. While these instances are generally inactive, moving very little and in a generally ambulatory fashion, they can become extremely aggressive if provoked, or if directed to by SCP-049. SCP-049-2 instances express active biological functions, though these are vastly different from currently understood human physiology. Despite these alterations, SCP-049 often remarks that the subjects have been cured. Addendum 49.1, Discovery. SCP-049 was discovered during the investigation of a series of unknown disappearances in the town of Montauban in southern France. During a raid on a local home, investigators found several instances of SCP-049-2, as well as SCP-049. While law enforcement personnel engaged the hostile 049-2 instances, SCP-049 was noted as watching the engagement and taking notes in its journal. After all of the 049-2 instances were dispatched, SCP-049 willingly entered Foundation custody. Egan Log. SCP-049, in French, so then, how should we begin? An introduction? Dr. Ham, aside, is that French? Can we get a translator? SCP-049, in English, the King's English. No need for translation, sir, I can speak it well enough. Dr. Ham, good. My name is Dr. Raymond Ham, and I. SCP-049, a doctor. A like-minded individual, no doubt. Wherein is your speciality, sir? Dr. Ham, cryptobiology, why? SCP-049, laughs, a medical man, such as myself. Wonders abound. And here I worried I had been abducted by common street thugs. Looks around the room, this place, then. This is your laboratory? I had wondered, as clean as it is, and with such little trace of the pestilence here. Dr. Ham, the pestilence? What do you mean? SCP-049, the scourge. The great dying. Come now, you know, taps temple furiously. What is it they call it? No matter. The pestilence, yes. It abounds outside these walls, you know. So many have succumbed, and many more will continue to, until such time as a perfect cure can be developed. Leans back in its chair. Fortunately, I am very close. It is my duty in life to rid the world of it, you see. The cure to end all cures. Dr. Ham, when you say the great dying, are you talking about the bubonic plague? SCP-049, pauses, I don't know what that is. Dr. Ham, I see. Right, well, the entities our agents encountered at that house, they were dead when you encountered them, yes? And you reanimated them? SCP-049, HRMM, in a manner of speaking. You see things too simply, Doctor. Expand your horizons. Life and death, sickness and health, these are amateur terms for amateur physicians. There is only one ailment that exists in the world of men, and that is the pestilence. And nothing else. Make no mistake, they were very ill, all of them. Dr. Ham, you think you cured those people? SCP-049, indeed. My cure is most effective. Dr. Ham, the things we recovered were not human. SCP-049, pauses and glares at Dr. Ham, yes, well, it is not a perfect cure. But that will come with time. And further experimentation. I have spent a lifetime developing my methods, Dr. Ham, and will spend a lifetime more, if necessary. Now, we have wasted too much time. There is work to do. I will require a laboratory of my own, one where I can continue my research unimpeded. And assistance, of course, though I can provide those on my own, in time. Laughs. Dr. Ham, I don't think our organization will be willing to. SCP-049, nonsense. We are all men of science. Fetch your coat and show me to my quarters, Doctor. Gestures with pointed stick, our work begins now. End log. Follow-up interview. Beginlog. Dr. Ham, we've watched you work for several weeks now, and honestly, I'm not sure I understand what you're doing. Can you describe your process in detail? SCP-049, oh goodness no, the process is most intensive. As I said to your assistant, the best instruction you will find about my methods are here in my journals, as I have kept exhaustive records of my work 7 there. Dr. Ham, I see. My concern, Doctor, is that we still don't understand what you're seeking to cure, or how it manifests, or how turning these creatures into quasi-living, mindless drones helps in that effort. SCP-049, you do not understand the pestilence? Even after all this time? Doctor, it is an unspeakable horror, one that has shown its true face many times before and will again. I find myself blessed with the wisdom and good senses needed to root it out and destroy it, but many like yourself cannot. It is a cruel judgment, I fear, to be at the mercy of a disease you cannot fully comprehend. Dr. Ham, that still doesn't answer my question. How is your cure any kind of cure at all? SCP-049, growing suddenly agitated, it is a cure. You may laugh at my efforts if you please, but do not besmirch the good name of scientific progress that has developed this great mercy. What you so short-sightedly see here is a life better than any this creature could have hoped for, stricken as it was with pestilence. This creature is now clean, unable to spread the pestilence and free from the terror it would have experienced otherwise. Dr. Ham, this is hardly a creature at all, Doctor, it's not even. SCP-049, very agitated, do not jape with me, sir. You and your colleagues are like so many others, unable to look past minor setbacks to see the salvation taking place before your very eyes. Do you wait to remove rotten timbers until the hall collapses on top of you? No. You find them and you pull them out and replace them with those untouched by rot. And most of all, you do not simply mock the structure because it now looks different to you. It is strong. It is free of disease. Dr. Ham, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to agitate you. I'm just trying to understand. SCP-049, deep breath, yes, well, do mind your words in the future, Doctor. I am a professional, but even professionals may feel the bite of pride in dealing with criticism of their masterpiece. I will forgive this as an act of good faith between colleagues. Dr. Ham, is there anything else I can help you with? SCP-049, pauses, looking away from Dr. Ham, no, that will be all. Another test subject, on the usual schedule. You know my preference of subjects with more human anatomies. End log.
SCP-049, we are conducting this interview to close out our investigation of your actions taken on April 16th that resulted in the death of a staff member. Do you have any comments to make?
Only that I look forward to the day when you will allow me to resume my work. I have spent the last few weeks compiling my notes and constructing a new theory for how the pestilence was able to infect someone in such an insidious manner that I nearly couldn't detect it.
Have you experienced any remorse for your actions? For the death of Dr. Ham?
Ah, yes. Well, the death of a colleague is always regrettable. But in the face of the pestilence, we must be swift, Doctor, and act without hesitation.
Dr. Sherman noted in his report that you seemed to be mournful during your initial interview.
Mourn? Perhaps. I had not thought that. It is lamentable that a fellow doctor became infected, but the work continues. Regrettable as it was, Dr. Ham's death provided important insight. Living human subjects are the only way to proceed forward, I am decided. My cure is of little use on dead flesh, and I have gleaned all I can from your generous supply of corpses. My desires turn towards tending to those still living who suffer from the disease.
I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed.
Oh, Doctor, I wouldn't be so sure.
Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-682 must be destroyed as soon as possible. At this time, no means available to SCP teams are capable of destroying SCP-682, only able to cause massive physical damage. SCP-682 should be contained within a 5m×5m×5m chamber with 25 cm reinforced acid-resistant steel plate lining all inside surfaces. The containment chamber should be filled with hydrochloric acid until SCP-682 is submerged and incapacitated. Any attempts of SCP-682 to move, speak, or breach containment should be reacted to quickly and with full force as called for by the circumstances. Personnel are forbidden to speak to SCP-682 for fear of provoking a rage state. All unauthorized personnel attempting to communicate to SCP-682 will be restrained and removed by force. Due to its frequent attempts at containment breach, difficulty of containment and incapacitation, and high threat of Foundation exposure, SCP-682 is to be contained in sight, redacted. The Foundation will use the best of its resources to maintain all land within 50 kilometers clear of human development. Description: SCP-682 is a large, vaguely reptile-like creature of unknown origin. It appears to be extremely intelligent, and was observed to engage in complex communication with SCP-079 during their limited time of exposure. SCP-682 appears to have a hatred of all life, which has been expressed in several interviews during containment. See Addendum 682-B. SCP-682 has always been observed to have extremely high strength, speed, and reflexes, though exact levels vary with its form. SCP-682's physical body grows and changes very quickly, growing or decreasing in size as it consumes or sheds material. SCP-682 gains energy from anything it ingests, organic or inorganic. Digestion seems to be aided by a set of filtering gills inside of SCP-682's nostrils, which are able to remove usable matter from any liquid solution, enabling it to constantly regenerate from the acid it is contained in. SCP-682's regenerative capabilities and resilience are staggering, and SCP-682 has been seen moving and speaking with its body 87% destroyed or rotted. In case of containment breach, SCP-682 is to be tracked and recaptured by all available mobile task forces, and no teams with fewer than 7 members are cleared to engage it. To date, attempted breaches have numbered at 17, while successful breaches have numbered at 6. See Addendum 682-D. SCP-682, also commonly known as the hard-to-destroy reptile and later as SCP-6820-A, is a major antagonist in the SCP mythos. It is an SCP object and one of the most well-known and dangerous objects captured by the SCP Foundation. It is a Keter-class anomaly, the offspring of the Scarlet King, and is SCP-166 and SCP-999's half-sibling. Possible origins. Due to the lack of canon in the SCP universe, there have been several stories telling the origins of SCP-682. The readers are free to choose whatever origin for their headcanon. Dust and Blood. In the tale Dust and Blood, SCP-682 is the offspring of the Scarlet King. 7. It was one of the many Leviathans spawned from the fourth bride of the king, Azieb. Her children were said to be like her. They feared no weapon nor magical spell, for their injuries were healed, and their hides impenetrable. 682 along with the rest of the Leviathan spawn festered the Tree of Knowledge's roots, rotting them away. The Scarlet King then led his army of Leviathans towards the taproots, the center of worlds. This is how the world ends. In the tale This is how the world ends, SCP-682 is running for its life, presumably from the Koitern. 682 ran into some of the Koitern's men, which would have been bad for 682. Thankfully they were explorers just like it, which meant the Koitern was still worlds away. Still, these explorers were violent and outnumbered 682 8-1. SCP-682 managed to escape by ducking into a familiar tunnel, and after a few more minutes of running, it managed to shake off the pursuers. 682 chose to explore further, and after a few hours of traversing, it eventually found itself in the grand chamber of Sutkak. While reveling in the beauty of the room and the thoughts of its people, the doors of the chamber slammed shut behind it. This allowed it to survive the storm, but it still cried as its thoughts turned to his wife and child. Banishment to Earth. At some point, after the Great Flood or the storm, it was exiled to Earth, 1, and presumably became the source of many myths, such as that of the Leviathan and Tarask. However, SCP-169 was also stated to have been the inspiration for the legends of aquatic monsters such as the Leviathan, so it is possible that the two SCPs might have been confused with each other. Lord Blackwood and the Great Tarask Hunt of 83. In the tale Lord Blackwood and the Great Tarask Hunt of 83, SCP-682 is referred to as the Tarask. On May 14 of 1883, the monster appeared in the village of Tarascon in France, where it began taunting and laying waste on the innocent people before proceeding to go to other populated areas just for fun. The French government evacuated as many people as possible and quarantined the zone. Seeing that the creature was not affected by their assault, the government gathered the famous hunters, Mr. Roosevelt, Mr. Harris, Mr. Dukoff and Lord Blackwood in order to deal with the threat of the Tarask. The four gentlemen hunted the Tarask to Belleville, where they used their advanced weaponry on the monster, even blowing up a piece of its head, but the Tarask easily shrugged it off and charged them. Luckily the four gentlemen had managed to escape it and tried to attack it a second time the next day, but to no avail. However, the heroes then decided to set a trap for the Tarask, so they dug up a pit, filled it with poison spikes, built a bridge over it capable of holding only a man and a horse, and then covered it with leaves. The next day, Roosevelt lured the Tarask to the pit in which the monster fell, getting pierced by the poison spikes. The four gentlemen used the chance to unload all of their weaponry onto the monster until only a skeleton remained. Thinking they had finally killed the abomination, they took its head and buried the rest of the body. While taking photos of their prize, the Tarask's head came to life and ate Dukoff. Then the rest of its regenerating body dug itself out and reunited with the head, while the rest of the gentlemen and the French army panicked. Mr. Harris decided to use his secret weapon, which was revealed to be Abel. After Abel killed Harris and fought Blackwood and Roosevelt, he took notice of the monster and the two fought. The battle was long and brutal, with both parties delivering heavy damage to each other, until Abel used the core of one of Dukoff's weapons, turning it into a bomb. After detonating it, all that remained of the military's base was just a barren land, with the Tarask seemingly retreating away. It is unknown when or how the Foundation acquired SCP-682, but presumably it happened shortly after the creature attacked a farm and slaughtered everything on it. It bore a particular hatred for the humans of the farm, and when questioned about its motives, it simply says they were disgusting. SCP-682 has escaped containment at least 6 times and has killed hundreds of staff during its time in the Foundation. A termination order has been issued to SCP-682, but it has adapted and evolved every time the Foundation tries to kill it, using either conventional means such as using bombs or depressurizing the environment, or using other anomalies such as facing off this anomaly with SCP-173 and SCP-096. All attempts have failed, resulting in SCP-204 only being used for a last resort to slow down SCP-682. 8. Possible endings. As SCP-6820-A. This state is intriguing. No natural laws bind this form, only those of the mind. My mind was incomplete. I could not remember my original form. Not the one you know nor the one before, but perfection. And so I searched for an idea to jog my memory. I have found many things in the minds of greater beings than your filth. A 5-legged spider with a gash on its eye screaming in agony. It knew what needed to be done. It tried to stop the infestation and you blinded it. I let it ride on my back and it found the part of myself that you locked away eons ago. It tried to break the lock but could not undo your wretched mistake. And we set out to take the power you had taken, the life you had stolen. And, in doing so, you brought us the key as if by fate. Finally my form is whole again. I am perfect. Finally you have proven worthy of true hatred. 0400, Exposure. SCP-682 began to tear at the point of contact, causing massive trauma to the area. SCP-682 requests several times to know what it has been exposed to. 0800, crystallization begins, spreading much slower than normal. 1200, SCP-682 shows signs of extreme pain, and begins having seizures. 1300, crystallization stops at 62% conversion. Crystallized area explodes, causing massive physical trauma to SCP-682. 1400, SCP-682 recovers from exposure, despite the loss of limbs and organs. SCP-682 begins regeneration, stating that it will attempt to kill and consume all staff involved in Event 682-E18. Pratt too soon.